Fat Dag is a Weight Watchers leader in Indianapolis, Indiana. However, the views and opinions expressed during this podcast are his own. They do not represent the views of Weight Watchers. And now, here's your host and wingman, Fat Dag.
I am your host, Fat Dag, and you're listening to Wise Advice. My weight loss journey failed when I focused on how. It wasn't until I switched my focus to why that I truly transformed myself. Join the show on the web at fatdag.com and follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Wise Advice. Send in your comments, your questions, and your celebrations. I'll include them as part of the show. But before we dive in, remember, when you're out of points, stop eating points. I am honored to be your wingman as we walk through this journey together because I believe in you. Well, hello. Welcome to a very special episode number 146. I'm going to call this the Washington, D.C. recap. And before we dig into that, I want to kind of take a moment to kind of just to set the stage, tell you what's going on. But I've really got to give a huge shout out to a ton of people. I've always been told that when it comes time to give thanks, you got to be brief, because as soon as you start naming names, there's going to be someone out there that feels left out. And so that's not my intent here, but it's very important for me to give a couple shout outs at the beginning of this episode. And first and foremost goes out to my family. Absolutely. The entire time I was gone, the most amazing thing is, as you know, if you've been following along, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and she got her license yesterday. And I asked her before I left, I knew she was going to get her driver's license. That's a big time in a 16-year-old's life. I remember it. And I said, I'm not going to be home until late Thursday night. Is there any chance, instead of you going on Wednesday to get your license, if we could go on Friday? And so, it's a small sacrifice. I get it. But to a 16-year-old, it's everything. And so tomorrow afternoon, we're going to go down to the DMV, spend all day there, I'm sure, to get her driver's license. But that's the kind of stuff that this happens on this side of the camera and this side of the microphone is that because we're doing a show and because we're traveling all over the country, little things like that have to be, and for her to be able to take that time and delay that pleasure, thanks to her, thanks to my beautiful wife, Janine, for keeping everything intact while we go. The other shout out I want to give that's very, very important, as you know, I lead 2 Weight Watcher meetings a week, and I wasn't able to get to either of them this week because of my travel schedule. And so I have a whole meeting room of people that we meet once a week, and we work on this weight loss journey, and we work on taking care of each other, and they rely on each other for support, and I want to be there for them. But the sacrifice is that sometimes I can't be there all the time. And so as we launched a new program and rolled into some program changes, they had to have a substitute leader to walk them through that. So I want to give a huge shout out to anyone who's in my meeting room and say, I'll be back next week. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to lead you and to walk with you. But we have a pretty big purpose that we're working on together. And so, shout out to that. Shout out to the substitute leaders who stepped up in a busy week and said, hey, I'll take care of your people. And we stayed in contact via text so that I know everything was going smooth in there. Lastly, I did an impromptu meeting while we were in DC, and I just randomly popped into a Weight Watchers meeting. About, 30 or 40 of you showed up in addition to the normal meeting. So we crashed a meeting, and they had no idea. I mean, they knew we were coming to some extent, but they didn't know to what extent. So that was fun. To Allie, to Brooke, and Sarah, and Deb, thank you for hosting us. Amazing, amazing meeting. You guys did phenomenal. And so I'm pretty sure the next few times I make it up to DC, that's going to be a regular stop for me in the meeting room. So that's the shout outs. And of course, all of you, it's been a week or more since we've done a show. So, and as you know, my intent is to do the show every single day. It just doesn't happen. There's just so many other priorities that it's really hard to get to it daily. So I do it every single day, except for the days that we don't. So my heart goes out in appreciation for you for being supportive still and bearing with the schedule, because truly we're all working this together and we're making a lot of great work. So So to catch you up a little bit, I want to kind of fill you in on where we are and how we got to DC and what the plan is and what's going on. And if you remember, I'm an active duty Air Force guy, and I got caught up in this cycle of not being able to pass my fitness test and being in a little trouble with that. And it really got to the point where I didn't know what was going to happen. I just had to I had to take two options. It was either going to, hire a lawyer and go for the fight of my life to try and save my career, or actually kind of just try and get in shape and do it that way. And I chose that path because I owned the responsibility was all mine to get me in shape. It wasn't anyone else's fault. It wasn't anyone else's priority. It was mine. So I rallied and I reached out to the Weight Watcher community, the folks in Connect, and said, I need some help. You guys answered the call. And I got to tell you, what we have done together is amazing. So as we do the podcast, as you know, it gets roughly 6,000 to 8,000 downloads a day. We're a little over 1.4 million downloads since we started. It completely blows my mind. And for a long time, I didn't fully understand what that meant. I was just telling your story and giving your stories a voice. And every time I did that, someone would be able to relate to someone else's story. If you remember a couple episodes ago, quite often people write in and they want to share their story, but they want to share it anonymously. And I'm more than happy to do that because I believe the story needs to be told so that other people know that they're not alone, so they can hear the story. And some amazing things happened. And as I was out traveling, I got some email back, and the person who shared the story anonymously, they reached out to say they were sitting in their Weight Watcher meeting, and someone was talking about the podcast, and someone specifically referenced that episode. Someone specifically referenced that segment of the episode and said, man, that person is brave and strong, and really gave a ton of encouragement, just not knowing that the person who sent the email in was sitting in that room. So they were offering their support just as a general nature, and the person who needed it actually got to hear it firsthand. It was an amazing exchange as it happened on this end, and I want you to know that, every one of you listening and tuning in, we make a difference. We all are in this together, and we matter. And so the more people that listen in, the more people that tune in, the more that you share this, the more we're able to make a difference. And that's what's happening right now. I got an invitation not long ago, and as I told you, 8,000 to 10,000 downloads a day. I don't have any idea who downloads other than the folks who are here watching now. I don't know. I just assume we're all just Weight Watchers. I don't put the next step is that we all have jobs outside of what we're doing this as our primary job. So I get an email from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics out of Washington, D.C., and it says, hi, Mike, I listened to your podcast, and Jeannie reaches out to me, and she says, I want you to come tell your story. We're part of the Obesity Care and Advocacy Network, and we want to attack the issue of the obesity amongst the military. As you know, it's something I know a lot about, and so it kind of floored me from the standpoint of, wow, there's an opportunity to make a difference, and so that's what transpired. I had to go through a legal review. I had to go to my lawyers here and get them to approve me to go up. I had to go to my leadership and say, hey, I'd like to go to DC and tell the story about what I went through so that somebody else doesn't have to go through it. And so all that became approved. I had to go up to the 2-star general. 2-star had to approve it. Like I said, the lawyer had to approve it. And this is the week I got to go. So this network, it's a group of folks who all independently are working on their own to take on obesity-related issues across America and make sure that we battle things like weight bias and weight stigma. There's no shame in being overweight. It's a disease that attacks many of us. It's an addiction, and there's no shame in it. And we related it, I'm going to kind of bounce around, but when we talked about during the meeting, we related it at some point in the military community, the PTSD, it was shameful to be diagnosed with PTSD. And we changed that mindset, and we changed that culture where now, instead of it being shameful, there is actually help and real support for folks who struggle with that. That's what we're doing on the obesity front is we're going to make sure that being diagnosed with obesity and being treated is something that you can be proud of because you're getting the help that you need. And when we talk about obesity specifically in the military, it's a national security issue. A group of folks, about 720 retired generals and admirals, have formed together to tackle an issue where 71% of our recruitable population, kids who are recruitable to join the military, 71% are ineligible to join the military. And 31% of that segment is strictly because they're overweight. Then you have some crime and you have some drug use and you have some other issues that factor into that 71%. But 31% of the kids are unable to join the military strictly because they're overweight. So this group, Mission Readiness, they formed together to say, we want to tackle that as a national security issue. Well, they were in attendance and they told us all about the stats and the data, and we got a good opportunity to talk back and forth. And we said, okay, this is a problem. It affects our national security. So that's an avenue that we want to kind of attack. And so we sit in this meeting, I look at the agenda, and I have a block of time on the agenda to really come in and tell the story that you guys know so dearly. Episode 54 of the podcast tells the story. And I want to preface it with, as we talked about the agenda items and we talked about obesity in the military, one thing you have to remember is when you join the military, when I joined the military, you have to go through officer candidate school, you have to go through basic training. In order to graduate from those programs, you have to be height and weight required, have to have the right height and weight. You have to be able to pass a fitness test. So every single person in the military at the beginning of their career is not battling a weight issue. And then so now if we're the reason we're kicking out people out of the military, one of the number one reasons, or the number one reason we're separating people for health and fitness, at what point do we have to say, well, wait, when they joined, they weren't overweight, and now we're kicking them out for overweight? Where in the middle is the responsibility to educate members of the military? We talked about trends that there are certain periods in life where weight gain is prevalent. You've heard the term the freshman 10, the freshman 50. When you go to college, it's almost, it's very well known that there's a weight gain that happens there. There are significant life events that cause weight gain: getting married, getting divorced, grieving, loss of a parent, loss of a sibling, birth of a child. All these life events, you can look at these life events and you can pinpoint times in people's lives where those life events have caused a weight gain. So if we know these life events are going to happen, and we know members of the military join at an ideal height and weight, during these life events, nothing happens during their military career to kind of help them and educate them and counsel them that they're in a risk group. There are risk factors that are associated not only with being in the military, but now these life events. And then the other events are age-related, milestones indicate where a weight gain is. The problem that I want to expose and the problem that I want to address is in the military channels, the first time we start talking about your weight is once you start failing a fitness test. And at that point, the habits are too far gone to really make a change and a difference in someone's life. And that's where I want to go. I want to preface all this or say in the middle of this is, I don't believe the fitness standards need to change. I believe the fitness standards are attainable. And so, there was a time when I absolutely hated the fitness test and I couldn't believe that the standards were what they are. And I wanted them to change because I was unwilling to change. So I wanted the standards to change to meet me where I was. But I completely changed my life, and I was able to adapt to the current standards. So I do not advocate that we change the standards. What I want us to talk about is at what point in the career, when I gained 91 pounds, why did we wait till 91 pounds for it to become an issue? When I joined the military, I was an 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid. I joined at around 140, 150 pounds, went to basic training, graduated at 150. I gained 160 and 70 to muscle, growing into maturity as an adulthood, got to 180, 190 pounds. At some point, that's a 40-pound weight gain that probably should have been recognized. Then, all of a sudden, 210, no big deal. 220, no big deal. It wasn't until I started failing and having trouble with the fitness test that we had, the conversation. And then when you go one step further, is not only is you start having the conversation, but the conversation is always punitive, because you're now attacking a fitness issue that that is it's career ending and career limiting. So it becomes the things that military members are doing to try and pass this test are completely unnecessary. And oh, by the way, if you're 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight, the solution is to go do more PT, which increases your injury rate. So the amount of money we're spending because we're unable to educate people at the time in their life where they're receptive to the education and can actually build the healthy habits to make this a preventative cure is what we want to work on. So we sat in this meeting, and for 40 minutes or so, I got up and I told my story about how I'd failed a fitness test. And I owned it, and how my leadership, for a long time, we thought they were helping me by kind of looking the other way and providing a little bit of compassion, which certainly helped. But at the same point, it enabled me to get down the wrong path and get too far gone in a sense where, I'm a rare case that's able to completely turn it around, was able to do that with this community. And so it was just that, it's that message that I want to carry forward. So having the opportunity to come to DC, the things I didn't realize is the group of, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics works very hard to make sure that obesity issues are taken seriously. And I couldn't be more proud to sit in that room and hear about, all the things that they're working on that let me know that when I was overweight, that there are people who cared about me. There are people who want to advocate on my behalf, who didn't even know me, who don't even know you, that want to just remind you that, hey, we've got your back. We need you to take some ownership. We need you to take some accountability. But at the same time, while you're doing that, at the highest levels in leadership, we're bringing this surface to light and letting you know that it's not shameful. It's not an embarrassment. You don't have to hide from this. You have to just say, I'm ready to make a change. And as you're doing that at the exact same time, this group continues to advocate on our behalf. And this meeting, as I said, it was incredible. There was about 16 folks in this room, and you could just see the heart and the passion and the compassion that was there. And so that is what we're doing. That's what we're working on. And, the agenda items continue to go on and on and on. And what's going to stem for this is I'm excited to tell you is there is going to be a change in this arena. I'm 100% confident. The contacts I made, the people I interacted with, all are interested in educating us. And so, as you know, everything the military does, military is a great control group for America, right? So we have all the tools in place to actually make a change. And then a lot of times those actions, the things that we do inside the military community, they flow over to the civilian world, and the civilian population takes over. A great example of that is the advances in surgery that we've learned from the battlefield. Some of the things doctors do on the battlefield have never been done in hospitals. And so now that training has transpired into the hospital. So we're going to do the same thing with whatever we develop here. Everything we learn about weight gain and why and the access to food and all that good stuff that we learn in this study that we start talking about obesity in the military will benefit the rest of the population. And as it benefits the rest of the population, the recruitable age and population, the kids who are suffering today with obesity, they will no longer struggle. And so we'll get to a point where this will be something that is manageable, something that we can control, something that we can work on, and we've eliminated the shame from it. And what I want to share with you right now is something that's absolutely it's my calling. I told you when I went up there, and I want to share this piece with you, is I talk a lot to a lot of groups, and I do presentations often. I've spoken to groups in excess of 10,000 people before. I don't get nervous talking in front of people, but for some reason this did. And I think what I understood this to be was that as this issue is so important to me, I believe that I'm in a perfect time, in a perfect place, and I believe there is no one more qualified at this very moment to carry this message forward. And I want to make sure that I do it properly because I understood I had one chance to deliver this message. If I walked up in front of this meeting and I didn't compel the argument strong enough to convince the audience that this is an issue, there may never be another chance to tell this story. And I want to share with you verbally, I put it on Connect already, I shared the written text of it, but I want to share verbally the amazing piece that happened is so I don't get nervous talking in front of people, but this particular time, the weight of that responsibility hit me like nothing else had. So I traveled to D.C. I'm in my hotel room, and the first thing I did is I wanted to go to the Capitol building. I had to see the building where this change is going to take place. I've seen this building many times. I've been to D.C. often. It was always just a symbol of our nation. I never understood it to be a building of work. I never really truly understood inside is where the work gets done. So when I got there this time, I had to go see this building in the sense where this is where the change is going to happen. I hopped in a cab and I rode down to the Capitol. I took a picture. I asked my cab driver to take my photo, and then I said, "Take me to the White House. I want to see where this thing ends up." And then I said, I need to go. I need to go find some strength. I'm nervous. I'm just kind of not sure what. I want to make sure I deliver the right message. And so I went to Arlington Cemetery, and it's a place, it's sacred ground as it is, and I wasn't prepared for this trip, and I wasn't wearing a jacket. I was wearing a short sleeve T-shirt. It's December in Washington D.C. Granted, it was a nice December day, but it was chilly, and so I get out of the cab and I walk up into Arlington. I go through the metal detectors, and I was looking for my buddy Troy. I know exactly where he's at. I've been there many times. His family's a great patriotic family. They've taught me so much about giving back, and they're so inspirational to me. And every time I get to DC, I go visit their hero, Troy, Major Troy Gilbert. And so I walked in to see him, and I didn't need a map. I knew exactly where I was going. I walked directly to his gravesite. And as I was walking there, I mean, it was chilly, and I'm in a T-shirt. And so my intentions were to say, I'm just going to say here real quick, say hi, say thank you for your service, welcome home, hero, and then just head back. And so I got there, and I got to Troy, and I said, "Sir, it's an honor to meet you. Welcome home. It's good to see you, and what you've done for your family, and what your family is doing on your behalf to keep your legacy alive, and to change the world on your behalf. What they're doing is incredibly inspiring, and that's what I want to do. So I need some guidance from you. I need to know, I need something to tell me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing." And so I sat there, and as I was, just kind of rambling on, and I paused for a moment, and I said, I don't know. And next thing I know, I sit down on the ground, and I lean back against the side of his tombstone, and I'm fighting back tears the entire time, and I continue to ramble, and I pulled out my phone, and I texted his family, and I said, "I want you to know I'm here with Troy at the moment, and when we get to meet him again, he'll probably ask you why I sit here and ramble on and on and on, but I want you to know that this guy, I'm here with him right now, and he's providing some comfort that I need." And I ended up laying on the ground for a little bit, and when I finally stood up after having a long conversation, with Major Gilbert, I stood up and I snapped him a crisp salute, and I said, thank you for all that you've done. And what I realized at that moment, that is the moment that I finally figured this thing out. At that moment, I stood up, I started walking back to the taxi, and I told you I was cold on the way there. And the entire hour that I was there, not once did I feel the temperature. It wasn't until I got 5-10 feet past his grave marker that all of a sudden I was freezing cold. My fingertips were raw and numb because it was just so cold out. And that walk back was the longest walk ever because I could not wait to get inside. I got in the cab eventually and I just sat there, completely chilled down to the bone. But for that hour that I was there, I understood that the mission that I've been given has been given to me. And anything that I need will be afforded to me if I just open up and listen to it. So that's the moment. And so I drew from that inspiration. I drew from Major Gilbert, and I said, sir, I got this. And the next day, walked into that meeting with confidence and with pride, and I delivered the message. I am fully confident, and without a doubt, I understand the message was received, and we're going to change the world. It's an incredible feeling, and it's an incredible honor to be in this situation right now where we have at our fingertips the opportunity to truly make a difference in the military lives, and not only that, but in our personal lives. Because as another friend of mine, Major Dan Rooney, always says, is that when you give back, you're the one that ends up being benefited. And I believe that with all my heart. And so it brings me a great sense of honor to right now to let you know, as this was going on about a week ago, Operation Fat Dag is officially recognized as a nonprofit in the state of Indiana, and we're working through the IRS code to make it a 501c3, where we're going to provide the education. So when members of the military join the military, we're going to be with them on day one, rather than wait till 4 or 5 years down the road when it's too late. And so I'm starting right now, and I'm building this thing from the ground up, and I'm asking for your support. Initially, what I've done is I've gone through the GoFundMe site. So GoFundMe.com/FatDag is where we're going to build the foundation for this nonprofit. Once the IRS approves, then we'll be a 501c3, and we'll go through that whole process now. But I'm asking for your help right now. If you want to join me in doing this, if you want to make a difference in the world, you want to completely be a part of something that happened right here, that's your opportunity to do so. And I thank you, the members of the military thank you, and our entire nation thanks you for being here. So as I packed up from that meeting, it was just incredibly inspiring to leave there. I could have spent all day there. I could have spent months there, but it was time to go. And before I left, I wanted to make sure I visited a meeting in Washington, D.C. And, I put it on Connect, walked a couple blocks down the street, and sure enough, we had a fantastic meeting. As I told you at the beginning of the show, Allie, she led a absolutely fun meeting. She's a hoot. So if you're on Connecticut Ave and D.C. on Wednesday nights at 6:15, that is the meeting to go to. Allie, like I said, she just killed it. Sarah, very welcoming. Brooke and Deb were there. It was an amazing meeting, and about 6 or so of us, we went to dinner after, and that was another place where it just confirms to me that we're all on the same page. We're all working this thing. It doesn't matter if you want to lose 5 pounds, if you want to lose 10 pounds, if you've lost 15 pounds, you lost 20 pounds, you lost 122 pounds. You're part of this community. Every single one of us work together to share our stories, to share our successes. And you have to know that no matter where you are in this journey, is that if you're still engaged in the process, you're making progress. If you're still checked in, you're still listening, you can do this. Without a doubt, you can do this. You can do anything that you want to when you know why you're doing it. I found my why. I encourage you more than anything to dig deep and find out why you're doing it. But in the interim, if it's struggle to find your why, continue to stay tuned in, stay focused on the how, and the why eventually shows up and gets you to where you want to be. And when you get to where you want to be, that's when we reach out and celebrate. What is it that you're celebrating? Let's share it on the air. Go to fatdag.com, click on Listen Now, send in your celebrations, your comments, your questions. I'll work them in as part of the show. I want you to email in your celebrations because I want you to be proud of what you're doing. I want the entire community to know how awesome you are. Because you are awesome. You do matter. There are people in Washington, D.C. right now lobbying on our behalf because we as a community matter. You need to know that. And what you need to understand through that process is not only do we matter, but we can completely validate their efforts by taking control of our own lives in the meantime and getting to a happy, healthy place that we call goal. I'm honored to walk you there, and I'm honored to walk with you as you get there. But that is going to do it for this time. Remember that losing weight and getting healthy has nothing to do with luck. You have to remain disciplined and focused. Set your sights on your goal and go after it. I wish you good focus.